Howdy y'all, welcome to History by Phillips. I'm teacher Mr. Phillips. Last video we talked about call to arms. Call to arms, we looked at two big things. First was the Continental Congress. They got together, basically these gentlemen right here that you see. They petitioned King George. That's one of the rights as we American citizens enjoy, being able to petition our government. They petitioned King George. They tried to repeal the Stamp Act, the Intolerable Acts, all the laws and regulations that England's government, also known as Parliament, England's government sanctioned on the colonies. And we also talked about the militias coming together. Now remember, people in the militia are typically untrained soldiers. Like I said, think of them as a soldier that hasn't been to basic training yet. They're ready and willing, but just have not been trained. Now, amongst these militiamen, you got veterans of the French and Indian War. You have your local doctor, maybe a preacher man here or there, the local town drunk, maybe some 13, 14-year-old kids, possibly a slave here and there. You name it, from all sorts of walks of life. These are just people wanting to be set or tired of England and their harsh treatment toward them. So we have these militias coming about. One of the big battles that we talked about, we mentioned the Lexington Concord is shot, heard around the world. Ralph Waldo Emerson would romanticize that, the shot heard around the world. What he meant by that is that how dare these, well, I don't know if he meant this personally, but how dare these nobodies challenge King George, Britain, the end-all be-all of the time around at this time period. Britain is the or they're up there. I guess maybe considered the dominant global power at this time, arguably. But anyways, I digress. We have Paul Revere's Midnight Ride. The British are coming. The British are coming. Then the Battle of Bunker Hill. We have the British soldiers going up, storming up these hills. The Battle of Bunker Hill was actually, I don't know if you can tell, Britain had this part of the harbor secured. So when they tried to invade the mainland this way, they had cannons and boats on this side. So they tried to take the mainland from a direct approach. The colonists, the patriots, were already waiting on them. They knew they'd be coming this way. So General Howe would march his men up this hill. The first one, the bulk of the action that you don't hear much about, is called Breed's Hill. A bulk of the fighting would happen on Breed's Hill. British troops would march up. They would get shot at. Remember, they wait till they saw the whites of their eyes. They eventually run out of ammo. They was forced to retreat. As they was retreating, they keep harassing the Brits. They fought them off a little bit more on Bunker Hill, but eventually the Patriots had to retreat because you're not going to stick around if you don't have bullets to shoot, are you? That sounds like a good way to get killed. So the Patriots left, so the British were able to technically take the land but win. But this is the second time the British got whipped. The deadliest, most effective war machine at the time is getting beat up by the militia. King George is getting embarrassed on a global scale. Spain, Portugal, France, all the European bigwigs, they are they're kind of, I'm not making fun of King George. Well, I guess you could say they are behind his back, but King George is the butt of a lot of jokes right now. But that'll take us in today's lesson. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about declaring independence. In declaring independence, let me get my screen straight here. In declaring independence, we're going to talk about three things. First, we're going to talk about the Second Continental Congress. Hint, hint, it's pretty much the same guys from the First Continental Congress. They just met for the second time. So we're going to be talking about the Second Continental Congress, what they're doing. We're going to talk about what's going on in the American Revolutionary War on the war front, battles and such, and we're going to talk about the Declaration of Independence itself. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So the guys from the First Continental Congress, they get together and they're like, hey, if things don't get straightened out with Britain here soon, we probably should meet again and come up with another plan. Well, things didn't get better. They're meeting again. In this Continental Congress, you have notables. I'm sure you guys heard John Sam Adams, Patrick Henry. He's a person to make note of. Richard Henry Lee, George Washington. I'm sure everybody knows George Washington. Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin is considered America's first rock star, celebrity, icon. Everybody knows Ben Franklin. I mean, he's on the $100 bill, for goodness sake. I mean, Ben Franklin was America's celebrity at the time. Also, I mean, man of many talents, jack of all trades, scientist, philanthropist, farmer, academic, you name it. I mean, Ben Franklin probably knows something about it. Oh yeah, and John Hancock. Everybody recognizes John Hancock because he's the one who signs the Declaration of Independence. All fancy. But here's what these guys came together and got. They established the framework of a functioning government, the infrastructure of a nation. What I mean by that, today you probably take these things for granted, but things like the post office. I know you guys are so used to emails and texting and Facebooking and Instagramming and TikToking and whatever. But, well, back in the day, pen and paper was how you had to communicate. And still to this day, a lot of official documents, things that you'll need, like getting a car, like car loans, house loans, like paper-wise, a lot of things is still done with pen and paper. So back then they had set up a post office. So setting up a post office, you had to set up the different branches of the post office. You had to set up networks. Remember, they don't have roads, so all this is done by horses. All this was tasked with Mr. Franklin, Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin gets put in charge of the post office. It's one of the things that your tax dollars go to help fund. But yes, they establish a post office. Next thing you do is they start printing money. If you want to be your own nation, you can't use another nation's money. If you're going to be America, you'd like to use some American money, right? It don't make sense to use the British pound. In case you don't know, the British pound is pretty much what they call their dollar. But yeah, you need your own kind of money. So they get establishing setting up their own money. With that, there's a whole side of economics to that we can delve into at a later date. But yeah, they have to establish pretty much an economy for the United States, or soon to be the United States. Oh yeah, we got the post office. Oh yeah, foreign relations. So the 13 colonies, they realized that there's bad blood with the Indians from the French and Indian War, because they fought primarily the French and Indians. So pardon me, it's allergies. I don't have the Rona. But back to foreign relations. Foreign relations, what I mean by that is they're trying to make peace terms with a lot of the Indians that they fought with during the French and Indian War. Because when they was fighting the Indians, they was fighting for England. Now they want to be by themselves, so they're trying to smooth things over with the Indians, try to piece it out. But also, they're also negotiating with Europe as well. They're talking to other countries like France, for instance. France is going to be our big buddy here in a little while. I know France is the butt of a lot of jokes, like they always lose war, but France is something to be reckoned with, especially Napoleon. Nobody messes with Napoleon. He's about to make his appearance here soon. But I digress. But yeah, so we're trying to get in good relations with France. The whole idea of doing this, talking with these other countries, is if they start recognizing the colonies as America, Great Britain and England might start losing their hold and might just give up on trying to pursue the colonies, give it up altogether. If everybody already knows it as America instead of the 13 colonies. If everybody recognizes it as the United States, they're good. That's the whole point of the whole foreign relations. All that's trying to work itself out. Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, all of them guys will be on those kind of committees. various committees trying to do that. But just know that they're trying to smooth things over with the Indians, and they're trying to get recognized by Europe and help, even aid if they can, from the various countries in Europe. They'd also do one last petition. This is the second time they're going to ask King George, like, hey, we don't want to go to war. I know things look bad with the Boston Massacre. You know, we had Lexington and Concord, Breeds and Bunkers Hill. I know things we thought we want, so they sent him another petition. This petition we like to call the Olive Branch Petition. And if you don't know, there's a term that goes around called extend the olive branch. I know, here's my little pointer, but extending the olive branch. That is a term, figurative language, whatever you want to call it, for offering peace. I know we was talking about money earlier, but if you notice on the back of $1, I do believe it's on the quarter as well. Let's see if I can get this going here. But if you can look at there it goes, gets back into focus. But if you look in the eagle's claws, one's holding arrows, blah, blah, blah. It's always being ready for, just be ready. But the other side, it's holding the olive branch. The olive branch is always a symbol for peace. So this is called the Olive Branch Petition. They send it over to King George. King George is like, okay, that's cool, whatever. But I'll tell you about that in a second. But the biggest thing that they did during this second meeting was they established George Washington as the general of the Continental Army. So all of a sudden now, poof, the 13 colonies, the United States, I'm going to start calling them the United States from here on out. The United States, they have their own army. But with their own army, they have to build it from the ground up. And keep in mind, Britain's army is the best trained, well equipped, so on and so forth. So they have George Washington named as the general of the Continental Army and established the Continental Army itself. So King George, he gets word of this Olive Branch Petition. He reads it and he's like, whatever, I'm king. I'm about to show these guys what's up. I'm going to control these colonies. Mr. King George, he buys himself 30,000 Hessian soldiers. It's pretty much a German, before Germany was Germany. But Hessian soldiers, they're mercenaries. If you don't know what a mercenary is, it's pretty much a soldier that you can buy at your disposal. It's like, I need a war today. I'll buy me 2,000 men. We'll go fight this battle. That's pretty much what a mercenary is. And the best of the mercenaries, the toughest of the tough, the mainest of the main, my gosh, you better be running if you catch yourself in a back alleyway with them, is one of these Hessian soldiers. One of the most experienced, best trained, well disciplined. They are mean. Now, King George has 30,000 of these soldiers alongside of his well-trained, best equipped, best fed army in the world. So King George is being serious. He is investing just about everything he can into controlling these colonies. I know the colonies are winning right now. It's about to get ugly real soon. There's a lot of pain coming, just to say, a lot of hurt coming. Yeah, the colonies don't recognize what's coming yet. I digress. Let's talk about the war front. So let's move on to the war. A couple battles happened up in Canada. It's kind of just tick for tack here. The Patriots take Montreal, but they also try to attack Quebec. They lose there. Keep note, this is Benedict Arnold leading this one for the Patriots. He has not, Benedict Arnold. They try to attack Quebec. Quebec's strongly held. They lost, but they would end up taking Montreal. Pretty much the reason why they want to take all this is because they want to control the rivers around this area. It could also apply to the northeast up here. So that's why all these places are important. But the big one that happened was, and this is kind of why George Washington becomes kind of famous, or becomes president. Get my thing here. Oh, Mr. Washington, he takes Boston. He steals Boston from the British. Because keep in mind, the Boston Massacre, the Boston Tea Party, Boston was under heavy sanctions. It was occupied by British soldiers, meaning it was pretty much, it might as well be in King George's backyard. Well, George Washington, he's been training. He's getting his army up and going the best he can. He sneaks around Boston. He scopes it out. He notices they're off guard. They're being lackadaisical. They're not, taking this as serious as they should. Next thing you know, George Washington rushes in and takes it out from under their nose. Essentially catches the British off guard. Now, if the British was aware of what was going on and George Washington was coming prepared, it probably would have been a different story. But essentially, George Washington catches the British with their pants down, and the British are forced to leave Boston. So all of a sudden, you have George Washington liberating that part of the country on Boston that never liked King George to start with. George Washington is like, woo! He's becoming a big hero celebrity himself. That thing might start turning into infamy here soon, though, because the war is going to turn ugly. Because remember, King George is serious, sent best army, best navy, and bought the meanest and toughest soldiers in the world. He has the best army money can buy. He's on his way. But, pardon me, let's get back to the last point of today. The Declaration of Independence. The reason why we blow stuff up in on July 4th. Let's talk about it. So, Declaration of Independence. So all these guys are getting together, and it's like, hey, we need to do something. King George ain't taking us serious. What do we need to do? So in June of 1776, the Second Continental Congress gets together. Remember, 55 of these fellas. There's more than this. There's 55 of them. They all get together representing the 13 colonies. We'll call them states by now. Representing the 13 states. They get together, and Mr. Richard Henry Lee, this guy right here, he comes up with a proposal. He's like, and here's his words: that these united colonies are and right ought to be free and independent states, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is ought to be and totally dissolved. What he's saying for is we all just separate from Britain, be our own country, no more, we're done, we can just be ourselves. He's going to give everybody about a month to think this over. While everybody was thinking this over in a month, a couple fellas were writing the Declaration of Independence. Now, the Declaration of Independence has 4 parts. The Preamble, if you don't know, there's usually most of these kind of documents, like the Constitution and such, they have a preamble. All the preamble is a introduction paragraph. It lets you know what this document is about. It has a declaration of natural rights. We'll talk about those rights here in a moment. A list of grievances. The list of grievances is pretty much lists everything that King George has done to the colonies that they do not like quartering of troops, suppressing of free speech, trying to take arms. Cruel and unusual punishment, unfair trials, juries, everything you find in the Bill of Rights is pretty much listed here in the Bill of Grievances. And a Resolution of Independence, that's pretty much the fancy way of saying, hey, 9 of the 13 colonies approve this, or not 9 of the 13, everybody approves this. These are the people that approved it. Let's dive right into it. Declaration of Independence. So it takes a month to think about it. A lot of this is thought on John Locke, or a lot of the Declaration of Independence is brought upon John Locke's philosophy. So John Locke believes in the idea of natural rights or God-given rights. Everybody's born with this. Like everybody has the right for express themselves, like free speech. Everybody has a right to choose their own religion, stuff like that. You are just born with this. Like no government, no king, no group, no police state, no army, no mama, no daddy. none of that can give that to you. You were just born with this, and that ought to be protected. We call these natural rights. You might hear them known as God-given rights. But that's the whole idea behind John Locke. You're just born with these certain things. And that, and from the English Bill of Rights, the English Bill of Rights, very similar to the American Bill of Rights, they would draft up this Declaration of Independence. They would draft it up. Oh yeah, but that's basically it. The 4 parts. The preamble. Here's the preamble for you. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Unalienable means rights that can't be denied. Denied means, all the stuff that's talked about, like freedom of speech, religion, stuff like that. Are not to be denied. That these are among the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's where I'm sure you guys have heard that term before. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's where you find that in the preamble of the Declaration of Independence. They sign this, they make this public. Pretty much every single person that signed this piece of paper has guaranteed one of 2 things. 1, a free country, or 2, a trip to the gallows. Every single person that signed this piece of paper will, if Britain can do it, they will capture and hang them for treason. This is serious. There's no turning back now. This is it. No turning back. So remember, they met on that resolution that Henry says, like, hey, we shall be independent. A month goes by, so it was June. A month goes by. These guys write the declaration up. And they meet again, July 2nd. 1776. They read the rough draft of this. Everybody's like, hey, that's pretty good. We vote on it. Everybody approves except for New York. The reason why New York didn't approve is because they didn't feel right voting on something so serious about reaching their constituents back in New York, but they would later approve it. So eventually all 13 would approve it. I forgot where I was going with that. All 13 would approve it, but it was a rough draft, so it took them a little. They got the tweaks and stuff. They fixed it up, and then on July 4th, it became official. Declaration of Independence. This gets printed everywhere. George Washington has this read to every single soldier in his army and militias. They're trying to circulate this around France and all over Europe. They're trying to get this everywhere. Yeah, the 13 colonies have pretty much wrote a broke-up letter to their King George. This is pretty much how you consider this. This is a breakup letter with King George, pretty much saying, hey, this is why we wrote it. This is things we need. This is reasons why you've been bad to us, and this is who signs it. It's a breakup letter, if you want to think of it that way. But yeah, the 13 colonies have said they are independent. Now, there's going to be problems with that. They have to build up their own infrastructure. Like I said, an army doesn't appear overnight. Where does the guns come from? The uniforms, the food, the wagons, the feed, not to mention the post office and the roads. You got to come up with the roads. You got to come up with your own hospitals, your own taxes. You still got to figure out your own economic system, your own money. Because remember, you just started your own economy. Everything that a new country is going to face is going to hit the United States hard. New country problems. Let me think what you know about. Well, let me know what you think. What some of the new country problems might be. Until then, this has been the Spirit of Independence lecture series. 4 parts. This is the last part. Thank you for watching these. Until next time, the next series will be the American Revolution. Until next time, everybody take care. Peace.